Good afternoon, everyone. I am Rochelle Joyce Morgia, and today we are going to discuss another video presentation for Literature 2. And here are the topics or the content of our Module 8, and our teacher tasked to convert this lesson to video presentation. By discussing the summary in 5 sentences, for each selection, the main characters, theme, setting, and the lesson that can be found in this selection. So first we have the Hans Christian Andersen fairy tales, and Hans Christian Andersen was a Danish author who is prolific writer of plays, travelogues, novels, and poems, and he is best remembered for his literary fairy tales. He was born on April 2, 1805 and died on August 4, 1875. His notable works include the Emperor's New Clothes. This story tells the tale of conceited emperor who is conned in wearing a new suit made from expensive invisible fabric. The emperor parades in front of his subject wearing his new cloth until a brave young boy points out that emperor is naked. The story was published in 1837 and most probably takes inspiration from the 12th century Spanish book and the tales of the Count Lucanor and the Aesop fables, and including here the swineherd, the real princess, the shoes of fortune, and also the red shoes that collections of Hans Andersen fairy tales. Hans Andersen, known for his fantastical fairy tales that feature ducklings, mermaids, emperors, queens, and his stories also commonly explore the universal theme such as poverty, charity, and inequality. So the setting that sometimes the fairy tales took place in the place of Denmark, and the lesson that we may able to found in Hans Andersen fairy tales is about virtue and resilience in the face of adversity for the mature readers and also for the children. So now let's proceed to the second one is the Grimm's fairy tales, in which Grimm's fairy tales, originally known as the children's and household tales, and it is a German collection of fairy tales by Grimm's brother or brothers Grimm, the Jacob and the Wilhelm, first published on December 20, 1812. So the first volume of the first edition was published in 1812, containing the 86 stories. In the first volume of Kinder Hand House Merchant Children's and Household Tales, it includes here the Golden Bird, in which it is a fairy tales collected by the Brothers Grimm about the pursuit of a golden bird by a gardener's three sons, and also including the collections of the fairy tales or the Hans and Lock, the Uranda and Urandel, the traveling musicians, Old Sultan, the straw, coal, and the bean, the briar's roars of the sleeping beauty, the dog, and the sparrow. And the general setting for Grimm's fairy tales is in a fairy tales there are three common settings: a village where people are poor and hardworking, a castle that houses royalty and the forest, which may be associated with an evil villain or something kind of a magic. And the deeper lesson that you can find in this Grimm's fairy tales, it shows why it is so important to be kind, especially to those one may have adventurous over. So, and the third one is the Disney versus Grimm's fairy tales, and we will talk about differences between the two, the Disney and Grimm's in Cinderella. Um, there are many differences version of the classic story. However, we focus on Cinderella. And Grimm's version was just a wonderful but had more twisted moments than in Disney story. Both stories are about girl who overcomes the cruelty of her stepmother and stepsister and end up in living in happily ever after, and there was many differences, although there are three stand out. There are three differences. The father that died in Disney version but did not die in Grimm's version. There was no fairy godmother in Grimm's, but there was in Disney. And the original version in the stepsister cut their heels or toes for it to fit the shoes, but in Disney version did not. And also in Grimm's fairy tales, the shoes is gold, but in Disney is glass. And so in this 1950 published version of Cinderella, she has a carriage, a horse, and a beautiful pink gown thanks for her fairy godmother. But in Grimm's version, Cinderella includes a darker storyline and opposed to Walt Disney version in Cinderella. The version was published in 1962 by retelling the story, and the lesson we can find in this story is that there was overcoming obstacle and hardship in both versions of Cinderella, but she maintained kindness, courage, and positive attitude that we able to see in that story. So the fourth one, we will going to discuss about original versions of children's fairy tales, and most of stories began through oral tradition. To provide brief attempt of at definition, a fairy tale is a type of short story that typically features fantasy characters such as dwarfs, elves, fairies, giant, gnomes, goblins, mermaids, trolls, or witches, and usually magic or enchantment boot. And fairy tales can teach children about harsh realities of life, and they show real life problems in fantastical settings and teach children that bad things happen in the real world. Fairy tales can also promote hope, teach the value of independence, and model bravery of the children who watch a kind of fairy tales that they can take as a message or the lessons. The fifth one, we will talk about the 1001 Nights. The 1001 Night is a collection of Middle Eastern folk tales compiled in the Arabic language during the Islamic Golden Age. It is often known in English as the Arabian Nights from the first English language edition, which rendered the titles as the Arabian Nights Entertainment. And the main frame story is concerned the Shahriyar, whom the narrator calls a Sasanian king ruling in the India and China. Shahriyar is shocked to learn that his brother's wife is unfaithful, and discovering that his own wife's infidelity has been even more flagrant, he has killed his bitterness and grief. The Shayar begins to marry a succession of virgins only to execute each one of the next morning before she has a chance to dishonor him. And the takeaway or the message for the readers is that it should be that everyone, or regardless of the gender, should be treated with respect and given the chance to demonstrate their worth as a individual of their individuality or as a human being. So we will also discuss about uh, the tale of Peter Rabbit. Um, Originally, the version of the beloved classic, The Tale of Peter Rabbit, was written by Beatrix Potter, and this tale is that written for the 5-year-old Noel Moore, the son of Potter former governess Annie Carter Moore, in 1893. It was revised and privately printed by Potter in 1901 after several publisher rejections, but was printed and trade edition by Frederick Warren in 1902. So the character are Peter Rabbit, his mother, and his three sisters, Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail, who live under the fir tree in a big forest. So this tale, the moral lessons of that we able to uh, take away is that Peter Rabbit is that there are consequences to our actions. The world has many dangers, and it's important to listen to directions to avoid them, so that we able to prevent the scenarios of the danger that we may encounter, and also the accountability of our actions. In the seventh topic, we will discuss the um, Curious George. It is a talk about the monkey. And this Curious George is a fictional monkey who is the title character of a series of a popular children's picture book written and illustrated by Hans Augusto Reyersbach, a German-born American illustrator and author known for best series of children's picture book that he and his wife Margaret Ray created various media including the films and TV shows, and have been based upon the original book series, and that includes the Curious George. So the setting we able to see is in the city where George and the man with the yellow hat live in an apartment in the big city. So, the lesson we're able to find is that George decided to use his four little hands to skillfully take things apart and figure out how they work, or exposes children to the basic concept of engineering. In other words, it's about the scaffolding of learning by doing of the children's. So, second to the last is we will going to discuss the story of Charlotte's Web. The Web is a book of children's literature by American author Ilwen Brooks White and illustrated by uh, Garth Williams, and it was published on October 15, 1952 by Harper and Brothers. So, the novel tells the story of a livestock pig named Wilbur and his friendship with a barn spider named Charlotte. When Wilbur is in danger of being slaughtered by a farmer, Charlotte writes a message in her web praising Wilbur, such as some pig, terrific, radiant, and humble, to pursue the farmer to let him live. And the themes that we able to see in this story is about friendship and shows perseverance in the relationship between the characters, and also the moral lessons is about uh, the friendship of or the companionship that we able, and also we able to learn, and the determination. So the last one we will going to discuss about the Winnie the Pooh, or the Winnie the Pooh, also known as a fictional anthropomorphic by Edward Beer, or the Pooh Bear, or the Simply Pooh. It is a fictional that a teddy bear created by an English author Alan Alexander Milne and English illustrator Ernest Howard Shepard. Winnie the Pooh first appeared by the name in children's story commissioned by London's Evening News for Christmas Eve in the year of 1925. So the character is inspired by a stuffed toy that Mild had brought for his son Christopher Robin in Horad's department store, and a bear they had viewed at London Zoo. So, the overall theme of Winnie the Pooh is the importance of forming solid, lasting friendship with a good friends. And one of the many life lessons from the Winnie the Pooh is teaches us that it's okay to be scared, but we must respond with bravery, and the unknown is only scary if it's remain unknown. So that's all the content of this the video presentation, and I hope you have learned something new today and you had catch up the important lesson in each story, and thank you for watching.